What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Loc'd Talks. And if you're in America, you know we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. A lot of people celebrate Thanksgiving. My family does celebrate Thanksgiving. I know a lot of people do not celebrate Thanksgiving because of the history behind it. And, it's just something that a lot of people choose not to be a part of. If you're not from America, you're probably, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but you're probably not familiar with Thanksgiving. But anyway, it's just a holiday, celebrated here in America where families get together and talk about how grateful they are, whether it's grateful for the journey they've taken, personal journey they've taken thus far, and the journey that God has allowed and opened up for them to take as far as leading a new direction in their life to better who they are as a person, to better their new line of forgiveness, their new line of intellectual discovery and mental stability. However, this episode, I didn't want to, I have so many things to talk about. Man, I really got to get uploading for all this stuff that I've written down, because I want to make sure that I lead or end the year on a good note, and that's leaving you guys with information that you can use and lean on and add to your life in any area that you choose. I believe that my audience is very creative. I believe that you guys are very intuitive. And so the things that I share, you may not use all of them, but some of the information may be able to help you. And then you can use that to widen your own, your broaden your sense of educational discovery, and your spiritual depth, and able to have conversations not only for yourself, with yourself if you need to, but with your spouse, your children, your spiritual leaders, your friends, your family, your coworkers, how to build relationship and fellowship with people that you trust. So if you guys are not familiar with the podcast, on Loc'd Talks, we talk about the restoration, standing your ground for your marriage, whether it is in divorce or going through a divorce or a pending divorce, or maybe things are just on the rocks between you and your spouse. I also talk about things that happen even after a restoration, or maybe things are great in your life, and maybe you just want to learn a little bit more about how to handle your relationship and yourself in a better way, in a healthier way. And so for you guys who are, old time listeners, thank you guys for being here. I mean, it blows my mind that, people are reaching out, and it humbles me, really does. And for new listeners, thank you guys for being here and checking this out and giving the podcast a chance. So today I want to talk about one topic, more like an understanding. I don't know if it's too much of a whole topic, so I'm not quite sure how long this podcast this episode will go, but it was something on my mind and I wanted to talk about with you guys, and that is being a pushover. Some people who do not believe either in God or believe in fighting for their marriage, when I explain to them what standing your ground or standing in the gap of your marriage is, and what it can do for you in an emotional and mental state, some people think, or maybe it's the way I'm explaining it, some people think that the stander is a pushover. We allow our spouse to say, do, perform any old kind of way, and we are supposed to smile, grit our teeth, and keep it moving. That our spouse is allowed to speak to us any kind of way. That our spouse is allowed to curse our names, to curse our works, to curse our entire life and our livelihood and our morals and our ethics, and force us to live a life of being a hermit, basically. That you're not allowed outside of your own home, that the people that you once knew now believe that you're crazy, or that you have no real love, and that you're controlling and you're manipulative, and and you're so strict that no one could ever love you, that no one could ever give to you, because you, as a stander, don't allow anyone to, one, talk to you, to relate to you, or to even get close to you. And I want to say right here, for those of us who are standing for our marriage, for those that are prodigals, or maybe those are friends or family who don't understand that's false. That message, to me, like personally, I take that message as a falsehood. Being a pushover has nothing to do with the state of being a stander. You know, for some, it could be being a pushover. Maybe for a long time, we have allowed our spouse, we have given them what they've wanted for a long time, and they've continued to push. And we have not put our foot down to let it be known that we have boundaries too. And that's what a lot of standards and prodigals have an issue with. And that's setting standards, that's setting boundaries, and that's also setting the tone for what both individuals in a marriage require from one another in order to move in a progressive manner. So I kind of have a gripe with that, you know, being a pushover. And what's a good example? I guess a good example of being considered a pushover from my own personal experience. And I know I've talked about this many times, but when me and my wife allowed my mother-in-law to live with us, and it felt like everything was good when we moved into our new home. For the first 6 months, we were on a schedule with everybody. We communicated like it wasn't no thing. So maybe it was more like a honeymoon stage, if you will. After the 6-month mark, furniture from my mother's apartment and my sister's apartment started showing up in our house. Food and leftovers and rotten food and rotten leftovers were being left in our refrigerator. Like, me and my wife would come from either work or school, or maybe having a day out with the girls or something, and we'd come home and there'd be people in our house, you know, that was friends of my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law. And though we did have a problem with it, we let it go. Now, some people would say, well, they're in your house, you know, you should set the rules. I mean, you guys pay for this house, you're paying for this house. Why are you allowing all this to go on? Well, because we thought that if we allowed space for the adults to be adults, then things would work out. And we were wrong. We were absolutely wrong. And so things got worse from that point on. And it wasn't that we were pushovers. That wasn't it. We were trying to do what we thought was a loving act of forgiveness and allowing the adults to, like I said, be adults. Eventually, things in the house got so out of unorganized and disarray and out of control that neither myself or my wife wanted to be home. Now, Tiffany wanted to take over. She wanted to have a little bit more presence. She said that there should be more of a manly presence in the house. And the manly presence that I was thinking of is that I was there taking care of the bills and taking care of my kids and all of that. But what she was alluding to was putting my foot down and let it be known that the things that are happening under our roof are not okay, and they weren't allowed. So it was a tough situation to kind of be in, to get into arguments and stuff like that at home in an attempt to put my foot down, but to not hurt feelings at the same time. So it wasn't necessarily being a pushover, but I wasn't necessarily being that presence, that manly presence within the home. So for guys that are listening to this podcast, your manliness and your testosterone, whatever the case may be, your manhood is always having, you do have to understand how far you go with certain things. Now, I think it's right to let it be known that the man is in the house, and if you want order in your home, then you speak on that. And if your wife or your girlfriend or partner or whatever wanted order in their home, then it's up to you to support her and doing that. Understand that sometimes it doesn't matter how you do it or when your spouse wanted to know that you are willing to support them and to support what you guys have worked on in your relationship. So and some guys get that and they put their foot down, and some guys cause more chaos than what was already in the household. And for those guys, good luck with everything. But maybe if you're listening to this podcast, you'll understand that there's nothing wrong with the energy you're putting out. It may be the direction in which you're putting that energy into. But being labeled a pushover, in my opinion, is not fair to a standard. We have a lot we have to put up with, whether it be court dates, whether it be children exchanges, whether it be business that we're into, going to work, going to school, figuring out how to take what once was a two-check income household and try to survive off of one. Now, I understand that for women,